Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, an iHeartRadio Best Kids and Family Podcast Award nominee. We are so delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show in the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Ghana, Stitcher Radio, wherever you find your podcast. We have two fantastic guests for you today. Christina Pelligrino will be joining us in a little while to celebrate her debut picture book. It's called Buster and the Brain Bully. But right now we're going out to the Chicagoland area to speak with Leigh Miller. She is here to celebrate Time to Recharge Harper. Hey, Kelly, how are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm really excited to speak with you. This seems like a really fun book. Tell us all about it.
It's all about it kind of drew for a little bit from my own personal experience, where it's all about a robot who, instead of having nap time, they charge. Mm-hmm. So like you plug them into the wall and then they recharge when their battery gets too low. And when I was a kid, I didn't really like to take naps. I also kind of didn't like to just like not be doing anything. So the book kind of changed a little bit. It originally started with like Harper just like taking on too much, but we decided like to sort of change it so that Harper kind of drawing from my own like wanting to do just too many things, and like you can't do everything all at once, and you also can't do anything when you're supposed to be napping and supposed to be relaxing. And eventually when you cut that out of it, any kind of like downtime, you kind of start to get a little kind of confused with what you're supposed to be doing, and things become more overwhelming after a while. And it's kind of to show kids that sometimes like nap time is good, and also taking breaks is good. And even if it's not as much fun as doing the activity, it is required to make sure that you enjoy what you're doing even more, because you have way more energy to do it.
Yeah. You know, I don't think I ever didn't like taking naps. I especially seem to like taking naps now. But I guess there are kids who just don't want to relax and take that moment to recharge. What was that like growing up, not wanting to take a nap and I guess fighting with your preschool teachers and kindergarten teachers?
I know, like, I believe I would try to do it when the teacher told me to, but I wouldn't enjoy it at all. I know, my mom used to tell me that when I was a baby, I just wouldn't sleep. Like, I wouldn't cry, but I would just they put me in the pen and it was like, okay, it's time to take a nap. And instead I would just stare at the ceiling or stare at anybody who was around me and just like stare at everything. And my mom was like, well, you weren't crying, so we knew it was probably fine, but we just wanted you to take a nap because you're supposed to take naps throughout the day. Mm-hmm. And like, yeah, it was interesting. I mostly, because even when I was like in elementary school and a teenager and stuff, I just didn't take a lot of naps. I take more now as an adult, I think, than I ever did as a kid, but like, I think that's pretty common, especially with lives getting busy and stuff. And
yep.
I still, to this day, sometimes try to just do too many things. And sometimes my friends would be like, you know, you can slow down a little bit. You can just kind of relax. Like, you need some time to kind of cool off. So I'm still kind of channeling a little bit of that Harper energy.
Yeah. Well, I do think it's important for all of us to remember, and we speak mainly to adults here in the show, but it is important for all of us to remember that we need to relax and take care of our bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're an author and illustrator. Is that how you think of yourself, as an author first who illustrates, or are you an illustrator who authors? I don't know if that's
I personally, I think usually consider myself illustrator who also writes, mostly because most of my background is in art and illustration and everything. And it just so happens that I really like to do storytelling. So, and then I remember it took me a little bit of time to realize that, cause when my first book came out, I Am a Wolf, I was like, oh yeah, I can technically use the title author, even though I always was like, oh, I'm just illustrating the story that I had in my head, even though that is exactly, if I'm writing the story, it's still an author. It's just, I didn't make that connection when I was, writing the book initially. It was like, oh yeah, I am technically the author of this book because I think of the art and the storytelling so much, but the storytelling, so yeah, definitely illustrator first.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's so many different ways to tell stories. How do you think you became a storyteller?
Well, I actually drew comics when I was in middle school a lot. I had like a few friends. I would draw these like 5-page comics, and then I would photocopy them like in the library and then like hand them out to all my friends. I also I didn't photocopy it as much in high school, but I mostly drew a lot of comics, honestly. I did do a picture book once when I was in elementary school, but that was for like an assignment. I think for me, illustrating and comics kind of went hand in hand. And even though these aren't comics, I use a lot of the paneling from my doing comics when I was younger, to inform a lot of the way I lay out my book style. So like in Harper, there's like some individual spot illustrations, but I tried to set them up kind of like panels so you could read them in the right order and everything. So I think some of that comic beginning still influences a lot of my picture books.
One of the things that we've talked about here on the podcast is just how important it is for parents. And I keep saying this because it's something that I didn't really embrace when my kid was younger, is it's important for parents to remember that reading comic books and graphic novels is reading.
Yeah.
And those books can be filled with some really great stories and complex characters. And the time the kids are spending reading those types of books is really valuable.
Yeah, I know. I think there's a term for it now, like the reluctant readers. But back when I was younger, I think so I could get into like a lot for like novels and stuff, but I had a hard time figuring out like what exactly I liked. And so I found comics were kind of the easy way in for me to figure out what kind of stories that I liked. And I know there's a lot more, I think, comics nowadays for kids, which is like extremely like, I don't know, it's just very exciting, like a lot of the stuff that's coming out now. But I do know it definitely helps kids who are maybe not sure what they want to read or a little bit reluctant to read for fun and stuff like that. Like I really do think they kind of help kids kind of get into reading both comics and other kinds of books and everything. So I mean, that's what got me into becoming a big reader, was reading comics when I was little.
What are you most excited about illustrating at this moment?
Ooh, at this moment, I'm working on I always gravitate, I think, more towards humor in my books, even if they have cause I Am a Wolf, I think is more of my serious book. That was the first one, but it still had a lot of humor baked into it. Cause I remember when I was younger enjoying more, funny works, even if they tackled like hard stuff, like as long as they had something to lighten the mood a bit in it, I usually gravitated immediately towards that. So I think I usually enjoy drawing a lot of expressive characters and making them kind of interweaving these scenes of humor, even if it's just everyday humor that everyone kind of goes through. For instance, in Harper, I have a few moments where Harper's just so tired, but he wants to be helpful and he wants to play with everybody else. In Harper, just being tired might make you mix up a very common task you have to do. Harper really wants to do a lot of different things. He wants to paint the canvas so he can make a beautiful piece of art while also feeding the fish. But in that moment, because he's so tired, he sort of mixes up the task. Mm-hmm. So instead of actually painting the canvas, he ends up throwing fish food on the canvas and painting the fishbowl. And I like illustrating those sort of like smaller humorous moments that kind of brings like a liveliness to the story.
Yeah. And I think kids love that kind of stuff. I know in my first picture book that I wrote about a magician who makes a lot of mistakes, he wanted to pull a rabbit out of a hat and instead pulled a hat out of a rabbit. And kids just love that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited to have you on and talk about Time to Recharge Harper. What are you looking to do in the future? Are you looking to do more kid picture books? Are you looking to get into graphic novels or anything like that?
I have a few picture books that I'm working on, and I'm hoping to maybe get into graphic novels. I am doing where I'm only writing though. Diana Sim is my illustrator, but I'm writing a kind of easy reader or early reader mini series. It's like a 3-book series for Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I'm doing the first one that is announced comes out in February called Aang's and Freezing Day, and I'm only the writer on that one. But Diana Sim's art is absolutely beautiful, so I definitely recommend just looking at all of her stuff.
Cool. Oh, well, speaking of looking at stuff, where can we go to find to have a look at your work?
All my work is on my website at kellyleighmiller.com, and Lee is Leigh, which is, I found out the hard way is not a common spelling, so a lot of people spell it Lee. But and then I'm also a Book of Kells with a Z at the end instead of an S on both Instagram and Twitter.
Awesome. We want to encourage everybody to check out your website and your Instagram and Twitter, and also check out Time to Recharge Harper. We've been speaking with the author and illustrator, Leigh Miller. Hey, Kelly, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
We hope you enjoyed our chat with Leigh Miller. Before we invite Christina Pelligrino into the studio, we want to invite you to connect with us on social media. Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram. We have a great Reading With Your Kids page on Pinterest, and you can connect with us on Twitter at Jedley Magic. And of course, we would love it if you would go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and subscribe to our free newsletter. Joining us right now from the beautiful Jersey Shore, not the one that was on MTV all those years ago. Our guest is here to celebrate the publication of her debut picture book. It's called Buster and the Brain Bully. Please welcome to the show, Christina Pelligrino. Hey, Christina, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Jed?
I'm wonderful. I'm really excited to learn all about Buster and the Brain Bully.
So, yes, this pretty much our book is inspired by our therapy dog work. We committed to doing that for a couple years. And when things shut down last year, we decided to sit down and start writing and came up with something. And the rest is kind of history from there. But this is pretty much our therapy dog work with kids, filtered through a children's book, covers on mental health and just our experiences working with kids, and we hope that it helps to inspire that conversation. And we felt that the brain bully was something that kids could relate to because every kid knows what a bully is. Mm-hmm. So you think if there's a bully in your brain, it's something that's kind of on their level where they can kind of decipher what that means. And
can you talk a little bit more about that idea? I love the idea. It is definitely something that I know kids can wrap their hands around, that you have this thing inside you that's bullying you and tormenting you, because that's what a bully, ultimately is doing, is tormenting somebody. Can you talk a little bit more about the mental health issues that you're addressing in the book?
So we're really addressing anxiety, fears. It can touch on depression as well. I myself have struggled for years, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. And I had always said that a child should never have to go through this. During those innocent years, it shouldn't be something that they should be struggling with. So I always had this desire to write a book to help people. And when we started working with kids, and we specifically worked with a classroom, a special education ELA classroom that we did Buster's Book Club for. And these were all kids that were struggling with reading, and he motivated them to read, and we became an integrated part of that class. So just to see what he did for them, and then especially when, the pandemic hit, the anxiety in our kids was just, it was unbelievable. And we continued with virtual visits, and then we're able to move to outdoor visits, but the anxiety they were all experiencing, and us being able to be a constant source of support, whether it was through the computer or then outdoor visits, they really were the inspiration behind this book, because I just saw how much he was able to reach them, and it was so heartwarming, and became our story. So it's very much fact-based fiction, and we're just very excited to be able to share it with people. And our kids read it to now read it to him in our read to dog sessions. So that's awesome. Mm-hmm. For them to be reading him his own story. We have their testimonials in the back, so they see their own names in it. So it's really become just like a community-based project where we really got all the kids who inspired the book behind it, and making bookmarks for our book launch party and signs for things. So it's really awesome. It's, beyond just a book for us. It's really, we integrated everyone and made them all part of the experience, which is awesome.
Now, what's the difference? We've had guests on talking about dogs, kids reading to dogs, and seems pretty straightforward. What's Buster's role in the hospital? What's he doing with folks in hospitals?
So just, really serving as a distraction, as something that, he walks in and, it just brightens their days. So we've had, we work several different units. So we've worked from the emergency department to keep the staff calm. So they're coming in with, a trauma that just came in, and they see a dog walking through the halls, and it just gives them a moment to just kind of pause. And then we've also sat with patients going through cancer treatment. So sit through their infusions. They pet him, and petting a dog is always, very relaxing. And so just spending time with them. And then we've worked in pediatrics as well. And, with them, it's really about, distracting them from whatever treatment they are. We sat with a kid through physical therapy before. Other kids who just want like a quick snuggle. They're missing their dog that's at home. So, at the hospital, what's nice is that every time it's a different experience. Sometimes it's support for a family who maybe just got bad news, and just a quick snuggle from a dog, helps them separate it from it a little bit. So, it's just, the possibilities are endless. People coming out of surgery. So in every different unit we work in, it's kind of a different response. Mm-hmm. But he's really there to just, provide a little bit of comfort in a time where, maybe someone just got a diagnosis, or, it was an emergency that they're in the hospital, and, they're missing their family or something like that. So.
Cool.
It really varies.
Yeah. Now, I have to tell you, it's awesome that Buster is able to do this, and Buster has this personality that just radiates love and calm and chill. But you must have, I think there's a story that's not being told here, and the fact that you shared with us that you discovered that Buster was a therapy dog because he kind of helped you through a dark moment in your life. That, to me, it's one thing to get through that depression, and that's wonderful, or anxiety, whatever it was that you were dealing with.
It was both. I had the whole
you had everything.
Everything.
So here you are, you're dealing with that, and thankfully Buster was in your life when you were able to help you, and Buster was part of your therapy along with the other therapies that you're getting. But you took it a step further. And how did you get this idea that, okay, I'm better now. I'm feeling better, and Buster helped me through this. So I want to put myself out there and help other people. I mean, for somebody who's completely healthy, the idea of going out and meeting strangers and going into a classroom, that's like really anxiety inducing. How did you deal with that?
So, for me, I still struggle. I am completely treatment resistant. So, this book is part of my healing here. This was a huge overcome of my brain bullies in going after this. Is something I wanted to do for years and I never thought I'd be able to accomplish. But, ever since I started struggling, I always wanted to help other people. I'm like, no one should go through this, and I can never stay well enough, long enough to do it. I can never stay stable enough. And, so many failed treatments I had, and, I wasn't able to work, and Buster would just lay on my bed with me all day and wouldn't leave my side. And so we really created just this unbelievable bond. And, in doing this work with other people, like I said, I had held off on getting tested for so long because I was so anxious. I didn't think I'd be able to do it. And once I said, you know what, this means something to me, I'm passionate about it, I want to be able to share him. And I think that if I can do this, it actually will help my well-being in being able to help other people if I could get past it. And at the beginning, it was very, very hard, because I would be very anxious at visits. And, but I knew there was a bigger picture there, that what we were doing was meaning something. And even though at the time I may have not been able to feel it, that it was beyond, what I was going through. And I was able to kind of separate myself from it and say, I know what we're doing is, making a difference for these people.
One of the things you mentioned the fact that, you have this anxiety and you had all these treatments and they blew up on you. They didn't take hold, and you weren't able to get better until you had this thing that you wanted to do for other people.
Yep.
Do you think that that's something in you? It's like, I wasn't able to pull this together for me, but I was able to pull me together for others. Was that a big part of your current success as in
Absolutely. I mean, this is clearly what I'm meant to be doing. It's still really sinking in that this really happened, and it's out there, and, people are reading it. It's incredible. And just every day I talk about mental health now, where before it was like, it's a very hard topic to talk about. And especially from the beginning, I wanted to write a mental health memoir, about what I went through. I wanted to start a nonprofit to sponsor kids who couldn't afford mental health care because so much of insurance doesn't cover it. And it's called Save a Smile. I had all these plans, but I'm like, how can you run a nonprofit if you can't even get out of bed? So for so many years, it was like, I want to find a way to help people, but I can't even help myself. So it took me a long time to, really figure it out. But then there was just a leap of faith with going for the pet therapy work. I realized I couldn't work. So I said, look, you know what? I'm going to dedicate myself to volunteering with Buster for a year. I moved back home, to help with expenses and everything, and really just, this is something I want to do. And it turned into 2 years because, COVID happened. And then it turned into I would have never imagined it would have turned into this book. And the book is just so far beyond a book for us. It's become a catalyst now for change. We already had a special mental health photo shoot. A photographer is doing a Faces of Mental Health series and reached out to us because she saw the book. We're doing collaborations with other authors whose books are also on mental health advocacy. And it's just a very unique story because there's a lot out there. There are a lot of other therapy dog teams that have written books, and we have many of them, and we share them with our kids and let them know it's one of Buster's colleagues. So we've had that. But it's all about, the dog's process, how they became a therapy dog. And then there's your mindfulness books out there, which are strictly focused on mental health. And we combine the two of them. And you really delve into Buster's character that, he's a dog that has feelings and emotions, and he's struggling with figuring out how to deal with them. And he finds his calling in therapy dog work, and it's by serving others, he serves himself. And I always say we kind of mirror each other in that respect.
Cool.
So.
Yeah. Well, I know people are going to want to know where they can find out more about you and find out more about Buster and the Brain Bully.
So Buster has his own Instagram account, which we do all things related to our work and some fun Buster antics as well. And that's busters.burrow is his Instagram. And then our book is pretty much everywhere you can buy it. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. For international, there's Dymox, there's Book Depository. So it's all over the place, which is great. So wherever your favorite place to buy a book is, I'm sure you can find us there. So.
Awesome. That's right. And, if you walk into your local independent bookshop that has limited shelf space, you might not find Buster and the Brain Bully right there, but you can ask those helpful folks behind the counter if they can order it for you. And that's easy. Get there in 2 or 3 days. And that's actually a great help for the author when you're letting a bookseller know, hey, I'm interested in this book. It's bringing the book to the attention of the bookseller or the librarian, and so it's a great help. Amazon is awesome. They were there. They got me my dog treats during the pandemic, but they have enough of our money right now. So let's support those small independent bookshops. Christina, I've had a great time speaking with you. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your story, and thank you for the work you're doing with Buster, and thank Buster for us. And did he have trouble with the Zoom meetings? Did he fall asleep?
Yes, so he's not a big fan of the computer. He gets very confused hearing voices and then can't, people aren't here. So we've had some interesting virtual reading sessions where he's looking out the window. So, yeah, he sat this one out.
Well, that's great. Well, we've had a great time speaking to the author of Buster and the Brain Bully, the debut picture book from our guest, Christina Pelligrino. Hey, Christina, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having us. We thoroughly enjoyed it and hope everyone listening enjoyed it as well.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Bob McKinnon. He'll be celebrating his debut children's picture book. It's called Three Little Engines. It is a modern retelling of the story of the little engine that could, celebrating cooperation and helping one another. That's the next episode of the podcast. Speaking of helping one another, we would love to help you if you are the author of a great children's book. We have so many ways that we can help you tell the world about your children's book. It's really exciting. Of course, you can be a guest on the podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic children's book, and it doesn't cost a thing. How would you like to see your book cover art being displayed on a billboard in one of the United States' largest cities? We can help you do that too. And of course, our Certified Read program has helped so many authors. You can learn all about these programs by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page and scroll on down to your area of interest. We want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guests, Leigh Miller. Be sure to check out Time to Recharge Harper. And Christina Pelligrino. Be sure to check out Buster and the Brain Bully. I want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Michael Murphy. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.